A good death. How to die well, or not die well. Diplomacy. Excerpted from Kawaidan, 1904, by Lafcadio Hearn. It has been ordered that the execution should take place in the garden of the yashiki. So the man was taken there, and made to kneel down in a wide stance space crossed by a line of tobi-ishi, or stepping stones, such as you may still see in Japanese landscape gardens. His arms were bound behind him. Retainers brought water in buckets and rice bags filled with pebbles, and they packed the rice bags round the kneeling man, so wedging him in that he could not move. The master came and observed the arrangements. He found them satisfactory and made no remarks. Suddenly, the condemned man cried out to him, "Honored sir, the fault for which I have been doomed I did not wittingly commit. It was only my very great stupidity which caused the fault. Having been born stupid by reason of my karma, I could not always help making mistakes. But to kill a man for being stupid is wrong, and that wrong will be repaid. So surely as you kill me, so surely shall I be avenged. Out of the resentment that you provoke will come the vengeance, and evil will be rendered for evil." If any person be killed while feeling strong resentment, the ghost of that person will be able to take vengeance upon the killer. This the samurai knew. He replied very gently, almost caressingly, "We shall allow you to frighten us as much as you please after you are dead. But it is difficult to believe that you mean what you say. Will you try to give us some sign of your great resentment after your head has been cut off?" "Assuredly I will," answered the man. "Very well," said the samurai, drawing his long sword. "I am now going to cut off your head. Directly in front of you there is a stepping stone. After your head has been cut off, try to bite the stepping stone. If your angry ghost can help you to do that, some of us may be frightened. Will you try to bite the stone?" "I will bite it," cried the man in great anger. "I will bite it. I will bite." There was a flash, a swish, a crunching thud. The bound body bowed over the rice sacks, 2 long blood jets pumping from the shorn neck, and the head rolled upon the sand. Heavily toward the stepping stone it rolled, then, suddenly bounding, it caught the upper edge of the stone between its teeth, clung desperately for a moment, and dropped inert. None spoke, but the retainers stared in horror at their master. He seemed to be quite unconcerned. He merely held out his sword to the nearest attendant, who, with a wooden dipper, poured water over the blade from haft to point, and then carefully wiped the steel several times with sheets of soft paper, and thus ended the ceremonial part of the incident. For months thereafter, the retainers and the domestics lived in ceaseless fear of ghostly visitation. None of them doubted that the promised vengeance would come, and their constant terror caused them to hear and see much that did not exist. They became afraid of the sound of the wind in the bamboos, afraid even of the stirring of shadows in the garden. At last, after taking counsel together, they decided to petition their master to have a seigaki service performed on behalf of the vengeful spirit. "Quite unnecessary," the samurai said, when his chief retainer had uttered the general wish. I understand that the desire of a dying man for revenge may be cause for fear, but in this case there is nothing to fear. The retainer looked at his master beseechingly, but hesitated to ask the reason of the alarming confidence. "Oh, the reason is simple enough," declared the samurai, divining the unspoken doubt. "Only the very last intention of the fellow could have been dangerous, and when I challenged him to give me the sign, I diverted his mind from the desire of revenge. He died with the set purpose of biting the stepping stone, and that purpose he was able to accomplish, but nothing else. All the rest he must have forgotten, so you need not feel any further anxiety about the matter." And indeed the dead man gave no more trouble. Nothing at all happened. The Yurai who wanted to say thank you. Translated and adapted from Mizuki Shigeru's Mujiyara. This took place sometime during the Meiwa era, 1764 to 1772. In Shimambara, there was a famous courtesan named Uri Uno. She had been redeemed from the Tomiya house and now lived in the vicinity of Takatsuchi. One night, Uri Uno was awakened by a strange noise. When she listened closer, she could faintly hear the sound of footsteps. It sounded as if someone was approaching her bedroom from the garden just outdoors. "Good evening. Is someone out for a stroll tonight?" Uri Uno called out, thinking this was a very strange thing indeed. She strained her ears for an answer. The answer came at last with a rattle of the paper screens that served as a wall between Uri Uno's bedroom and the garden. The figure of a woman projected like a shadow against those screens. The mysterious shape bowed down and whispered expressions of gratitude to Uri Uno. Just as Uri Uno was about to raise her voice in response, the figure blinked out of existence. When the mysterious apparition had vanished, Uri Uno suddenly recalled an odd encounter she had while she was still working in the red light district. One night, the maid of the Tomiya was looking at Uri Uno as if she had something very important to say, but Uri Uno did not get a chance to hear because the maid soon fell terribly ill and fainted dead away. For several days and nights, the maid went in and out of consciousness. She spent her final breath saying that she needed to see Uri Uno and tell her something, but it was too late. Uri Uno thought about the shape of the figure projected on her screens and felt that there was no mistake about it. That figure must have been the ghost of the maid of Tomiya. It could be no one else. A dead secret. A long time ago, in the province of Tamba, there lived a rich merchant named Inamurara Gensuki. He had a daughter called Osono. As she was very clever and pretty, he thought it would be a pity to let her grow up with only such teachings as the country teachers could give her. So he sent her, in care of some trusty attendants, to Kyoto, that she might be trained in the polite accomplishments taught to the ladies of the capital. After she had thus been educated, she was married to a friend of her father's family, a merchant named Nagaraya, and she lived happily with him for nearly 4 years. They had one child, but Osono fell ill and died. in the 4th year of her marriage. On the night after the funeral of Ozono, her little son said that his mamma had come back and was in the room upstairs. She had smiled at him, but would not talk to him, so he became afraid and ran away. Then some of the family went upstairs to the room which had been Ozono's, and they were startled to see, by the light of a small lamp which had been kindled before a shrine in that room, the figure of the dead mother. She appeared as if standing in front of the tansu, or chest of drawers, that still contained her ornaments and her wearing apparel. Her head and shoulders could be very distinctly seen, but from the waist downwards the figure thinned into invisibility. It was like an imperfect reflection of her, the transparent as a shadow on water. Then the folk were afraid and left the room. Below they consulted together, and the mother of Ozono's husband said, "A woman is fond of her small things, and Ozono was much attached to her belongings. Perhaps she has come back to look at them. Many dead persons will do that, unless the things be given to the parish temple. If we present Ozono's robes and girdles to the temple, her spirit will probably find rest." It was agreed that this should be done as soon as possible. So on the following morning the drawers were emptied, and all of Ozono's ornaments and dresses were taken to the temple. But she came back the next night, and looked at the tansu as before. And she came back also on the night following, and the night after that, and every night, and the house became a house of fear. The mother of Ozono's husband then went to the parish temple and told the chief priest all that had happened, and asked for ghostly counsel. The temple was a Zen temple, and the head priest was a learned old man, known as Daigen Osho. He said, "There must be something about which she is anxious, in or near that tansu." "But we emptied all the drawers," replied the woman. "There is nothing in the tansu." "Well," said Daigen Osho, "tonight I shall go to your house and keep watch in that room and see what can be done. You must give orders that no person shall enter the room while I am watching, unless I call." After sundown, Daigen Osho went to the house and found the room made ready for him. He remained there alone, reading the sutras, and nothing appeared until after the hour of the rat. Then the figure of Ozono suddenly outlined itself in front of the tansu. Her face had a wistful look, and she kept her eyes fixed upon the tansu. The priest uttered the holy formula prescribed in such cases, and then, addressing the figure by the kaimayo of Ozono, said, "I have come here in order to help you. Perhaps in that tansu there is something about which you have reason to feel anxious. Shall I try to find it for you?" The shadow appeared to give assent by the slight motion of the head, and the priest, rising, opened the top drawer. It was empty. Successively he opened the second, the third, and the fourth drawer. He searched carefully behind them and beneath them. He carefully examined the interior of the chest. He found nothing, but the figure remained gazing as wistfully as before. "What can she want?" thought the priest. Suddenly it occurred to him that there might be something hidden under the paper with which the drawers were lined. He removed the lining of the first drawer. Nothing. He removed the lining of the second and third drawers. Still nothing. But under the lining of the lowermost drawer he found a letter. "Is this the thing about which you have been troubled?" he asked. The shadow of the woman turned toward him, her faint gaze fixed upon the letter. "Shall I burn it for you?" he asked. She bowed before him. "It shall be burned in the temple this very morning," he promised, "and no one shall read it except myself." The figure smiled and vanished. Dawn was breaking as the priest descended the stairs to find the family waiting anxiously below. "Do not be anxious," he said to them. "She will not appear again." And she never did. The letter was burned. It was a love letter written to Osono in the time of her studies at Kyoto, but the priest alone knew what it was in it, and the secret died with him. The Konoyaku Ghost of Tenri, translated from Tenri Monogatari, Legends of Tenri. This particular story comes from Tenri City in Nara Prefecture. In the span separating Kabata Ward from In-Aba Ward, there is a stone bridge nicknamed the Konoyaku Bridge. This is why. Long ago, a rice dealer named Magobai was making his way across the city at night when he went to cross the stone bridge. Before he could cross, a female Yorai appeared on the corner of the bridge with a large piece of konayaku hanging from her mouth. Terrified, Magobai dropped to his knees and began chanting the name of the Amida Buddha over and over again. When he reached the 99th repetition of the Buddha's name, the bizarre Konoyaku Yorai disappeared. With the way cleared, Magobai ran home as fast as his legs could carry him. He later heard that there had been a married couple in town who had quarreled over a piece of konayaku, and that somehow led to the wife's death. The details were unclear, nor did anyone know exactly what the woman wanted. It is said that she appeared from time to time on that bridge, always with the same chunk of konayaku dangling from her mouth. And that stone bridge has been known as the Kanoyaku Bridge ever since.